he would start whispering, "Didn't I take up for you? Just let me touch it. Just let me put it in just a tip." My name is Vaneeka Robinson, and my story is about childhood and domestic abuse. My mom, when she was pregnant, she cheated on my sister's dad, and so he broke up with her. The man she cheated with, he came home, and his attention was really on me. He didn't pay attention to my mom. She should have noticed stuff like that. He agreed to watch my brother and me while my mom go back to work. And the very first day that he kept us, I remember him coming in my room and saying, "Let's play." He said, "Well, there's a new game that I could show you called Mama and Daddy." But the problem was, he said that we had to go into my mama's bedroom. And I said, "Why would we go in there?" And he said, "Well, that's what mamas and daddies do, don't they?" And I was like, "Yeah." He took me in my mom's bedroom. He started touching me, telling me how beautiful I was, that he loved me. He asked me before he laid on top of me how old I was. And I told him I was 6. And that's when he said, "You have a big..." I was a little hesitant because something told me that something wasn't right about that. But he just kept assuring me. He said, "I never hurt you, have I?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, I'm not going to hurt you now." He took off my panties and then he got on top of me. I felt like he was my friend. He wasn't going to do anything to harm me. But the pressure that came from him laying on top of me was excruciating. I just started screaming and pushing him. And he got up and he looked really like surprised. And he was like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you," and stuff like that. And then I started putting my clothes back on and I was crying uncontrollably. And he was like, "Don't ever tell your mom we played Mama and Daddy." And I was like, "Why not?" He said, "Because she'll stop loving you." And that stayed in the back of my mind. So I didn't tell my mom what happened. I started sleepwalking. I started thumb sucking. And I started eating a lot to soothe the pain. We went over to my aunt's house and my aunt said, "She's walking funny." I was walking like a cowboy. The place that he touched felt funny. And I couldn't understand why. The aunt would notice it, but my mama didn't notice it. So we went to the hospital. Doctor told I had gonorrhea. But it was kind of a surprise, like they didn't understand how I caught it because I would never tell. I just told it was that did it to me, which is what I call my mom's boyfriend. They said that my hymen wasn't broken. They were kind of puzzled. How did you catch gonorrhea when your hymen isn't broken? And so they talked to my mom and she was like, "Well, she did sit on his lap." And my mom told me later on that they said, well, maybe she caught it sitting on his lap, which doesn't make sense because I would have to be naked to do that. I just feel like my mom made a lot of excuses for things, just like when she cheated, saying that she didn't know how she caught gonorrhea if she never cheated on her boyfriend. After that incident, I don't know what he told my mom, but he told my mom he couldn't watch us anymore because I guess he figured I would tell. She had to get a babysitter to start watching us or whatever. And he came over one day, and this kind of stuck in my head a lot because when he came over and I looked out the window, I saw the top of his head because I was up on the top level, and I was like, "Oh, that bad man is here." I had to get a shot because of what he did to me. I don't want to hurt my mom. So I walked down the steps to go to the front door, and I was just peeping around the corner, and he said, "Why would she say that about me?" And my mom said, "I don't know, but you can't come around anymore." And that's when he looked around my mom and he saw me. And my mom turned around and she looked at him and said, with a chuckle, what did she say? "She's crazy," or something like that. She was like, she couldn't understand why I was doing that. In my mind, a lot of things was going on in my mind. Like, what did I do? Was I wrong? Was he wrong? Was my mama wrong for bringing him? What was the case? And by then, my mom had made her way to me. She had closed the door and she looked at me and said, "What you peeping around corners for?" And that kind of sealed my childhood because at that moment, I realized my mom didn't love me the same anymore. If I go through my photo album, there's no pictures of us anymore hugged up or whatever. She really stopped loving me. After that incident, I was about 9. My mom, my aunt, and my grandmother, just to give you a little backstory, they all got pregnant around the same time. They would all take turns babysitting. And I had a cousin. So my cousin and my uncle was around the same age. And my uncle was very violent. He was my grandmother's golden child. He couldn't do any wrong, but he would single me and my brother out and just use us as a punching bag. He was physically brutal. Just to give you an example, he could be watching TV and I'd go in front of the TV and he would beat me up for walking in front of the TV. And so my cousin would see this, he would take up for me. And when the two of them fought, they fought like dogs. Like you couldn't, I'm talking about they were drawing blood. They was all over the house like a tornado. They was battling it out. And I would just be in the corner, balled up in a knot, because when my uncle would beat me, I would protect my head and protect my stomach. It was traumatic for me. But the thing is, at night, when everybody was asleep, not go to sleep, because I knew what would happen when I was around my cousin. Soon as I fell asleep, whether it was 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, didn't matter. I would feel his fingers under the covers, just touching me all over my body. I would try to move in a way where he couldn't get to my front part. He would start whispering, "Didn't I take up for you? Just let me touch it. Just let me put it in, just a tip." And I'm like, this is gross. First of all, you're my cousin. Who taught you this? The only way he would stop was if I screamed. And so once he got to the part where he was pulling off my panties, I would make a loud sound to wake everybody up. And I automatically knew once I made that sound, fall over. Protect your head, protect your stomach, because he would just beat me. I ended up getting married. The guy that I married was a really tough guy in the neighborhood. So I'm like, he would protect me. So that's when the sexual assault from my cousin went from 9 to 13. Every single time I spent the night around him. So around 13, I started talking to boys on the phone. My cousin stopped. And so I got married to this guy, and he started cheating right after marriage. So we broke up because he started getting babies on me. But I went to my brother one day and I was like, I want to get, because I was dealing with so much turmoil that I wanted to find an escape. So I asked my brother, "Can I get with you and your friends? Will you look out for me?" Because he went out all the time with his friends. I said, "Yeah, I got you, sis." His best friend named, and he had my sister's baby daddy in the car. So I'm like, okay, I feel safe. We stopped at the liquor store. He started giving me MD 2020 Cisco. Once I got intoxicated, his friends started touching on me, pulling on me, telling me that he always loved me. My limbs started getting really weak. I couldn't even push him off. And that's when I told my sister's boyfriend, I said, he won't leave me alone. In my mind, I'm saying, I'm watching my brother walk away. I'm watching him not take care of me. And I'm like, I think I'm getting set up. And he said, "Don't worry, sis, I got your back. I'm going to make sure you get home safe." We get to the house. Jumps out the car. I got you. I'm going to take you in the house. And I'm like, "No, leave me alone. I don't want you around me." And then my sister's boyfriend jumps out and starts to fight, because he was determined that he was going to have sex with me that night. And they started fighting, and my brother jumped out the car. I'm thinking he's going to help my sister's baby daddy. He's going to help him fight to protect me. He jumped on my sister's boyfriend. So now, and my sister's boyfriend, and my brother is double teaming my sister's boyfriend. He was the only ally I had that night. He ran off and he was just crying. He couldn't believe. Here he is trying to take care of me, and my brother is actually setting me up. I've been diagnosed with PTSD. Being severely depressed and having PTSD, it causes you to have heart problems. It causes you to you actually have a stroke, and it causes stomach issues, nervousness. So am I really a survivor? When you think about all this stuff that I go through, it's a battle that I'm dealing with, and I'll probably deal with for the rest of my life. The fact that I'm called crazy by my family is why I go to conventions and I go speak. I'm an advocate for people who's had childhood and adult trauma due to sexual abuse and domestic abuse. I actually tried to commit suicide, and I ended up in a mental hospital. And the day that I got ready to leave, I wrote this poem called "Who Is Living My Life." People were actually crying, and they were saying, "You don't know how often I looked out my window and wondered who could understand me, who could know that I'm not crazy." And they told me that I did something that even the doctors couldn't do, and that was to let them know that they weren't alone. And that's why I feel like I have to tell my story. So the title of my book is called The Darkest Gray Revised, and it is about childhood and adult trauma. It starts off just as I explained, with my mom coming home with my sister. And the reason I chose that is because the darkest gray is like the closest to black. Black meaning the darkest. When people go through stuff, they think that they're alone. And the thing that sets gray aside from dark is that little bit of light, no matter what is in the distance, but that little bit of light that lets you know you're not completely there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're okay. You can come back. You can always come back when you have a little light. And that's why I titled it The Darkest Gray. When I was about 20, after me and my husband broke up, I realized that seeing a commercial about depression, I said, I'm depressed. You know what I'm saying? And so I started going to therapy. Therapy helps, but it's not a cure-all. The thing that helped me the most was pouring myself into that book and going around and being an advocate and speaking at functions to help other people. And like I said, I've had people that say, I used to look out my window and wonder, who knows my pain? And so when I would tell them what I went through, they was like, now I know there's at least one person that understands what I'm going through. That helping other people helped me.